Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. So I'll start this presentation with giving you some background about our today's topic. So disruptive avant-garde art of today, shaping post-growth imaginaries for symbiotic futures. This presentation will consist of two parts. First, I will present some relevant theories and concepts, and after, I will highlight art projects, all working towards the eco-critical practice and art theory and history, and the idea of changing our imaginaries through art. So this short paper is a collective work of 3 authors. So my now 10-year research is mostly in the field of avant-garde and new media art history and theory. So I'm interested in this alternative epistemologies of avant-garde art. And I gather parts of 2 projects that address the concepts of symbiosis in art today. In the first project, I work with my colleague, philosopher Magdalena Germek from the Slovenian Academy of Sciences and Art, in which we analyze the extreme perception of surrealism and its potential of forming new visual eco-epistemology. So we were focusing basically on different epistemologies and understanding of the object, so this surrealist object and nature, that go basically beyond conventional concepts and definitions in the normative ecology. So think about, for example, of Timothy Morton's dark ecology, or similar works that emphasize the extraordinary, the marvelous, different qualities of the matter that are other, that are foreign to what we experience today, based on the imaginaries. So based, basically, this conceptual matrix we have about the world that surrounds and inhabits us. So the underlying question here was the mechanism of the artistic, primarily visual aspects and its role for the social change. Second project resulted in the paper with the title Changing Imaginaries of Progress and Growth in Avant-Garde and Intermedia Art Practices. This was written with my colleague. He presented here on Wednesday, Peter Purg. He works in new media field on the same university where I come from, University of Nova Gorica in Slovenia. His work is more interdisciplinary. He's also a curator and an artist. So we analyze different art projects from the so-called classical, so 20th century avant-garde, so the isms, futurism, suprematism, dadaism, and so on, to today's new media and contemporary art practices in order to present artistic strategies that tackle or disrupt the imperative of growth and continuous progress. And we did this through 5 topical sets, such as laziness and disappearance, cosmopolitanism and universal language, alternative representations of space and time, transhumanism, posthumanism, and systemic worldview. The thesis of this research was that precisely art may enable a positive understanding of powerlessness and release, or the opposite of growth, which is usually understood as exclusively negative, right? We see it as lack, as loss, even as death. In order to describe how current art contributes to the shaping of our imaginaries for the better future in the age of the Anthropocene, we will introduce key concepts such as conviviality, symbiosis, defuturing, imaginary growth, post-growth, and degrowth, because these concepts also shape the paradigm of the possible eco-critical art theory and history. So interestingly, the eco-critical approach has meanwhile become an integral part in the curricula of literary studies, for example, whereas in art history, the eco-critical perspective is yet to be mainstreamed in this sense. In my opinion, the best the kind of work, the most comprehensive work in this field is the book Eco-Critical Eye by Andrew Patricio, that develops eco-critical art history through the unifying theme of non-hierarchy. And his thought basically connects the valuable ideas and theories from Marxism, post-humanism, new materialism, and ecological theory. And the second short part of the presentation, we will highlight 2 distinct examples of current artworks that seek to participate in transforming the human imagination in the direction of symbiotic futures, not dependent of industrial and consumerist systems, rooted in the idea of continuous growth. The term conviviality was incorporated to the humanities vocabulary by Ivan Illich, who in his work criticized the industrial capitalism and productivity to instead describe a path of human emancipation and autonomy for reaching convivial life. Conviviality does not mean only relationship of cooperation, but it also includes conflict, attention, as constitutive and necessary part of convivial relations. Human beings are understood as a part of the network of players living in symbiosis with others. Moreover, to Illich, the word conviviality does not mean joy or lightheartedness. It refers to a society in which modern tools are used by everyone in an integrated and shared manner without reliance on a body of specialists who control set systems or instruments. Perceptions of harmonious interaction of symbiosis were critiqued by Isabel Stenger's research in thermodynamics to include complexity, processes of disturbance and friction that cause a state of crisis and lead to change. It is not a coincidence that through different representations and presentations, we mentioned Stenger's work many times this week. Furthermore, Anna Zink's work on rare matsake mushroom, in which she presents the complex network of cooperation between human and non-human participants that reject stability as a central goal of relationships, and even stability of the term naturalness. Stenger's and Zink's work not only opens to question the foundation of objective, natural, and humanities science, but also shows a new way of connecting and generating knowledge and possible new imaginaries that can arise from different forms of human activity, which is not necessarily bound to the rationality and authority. Knowledge and science can be, through specific practices and processes, something that we do not only discover, but also shape. And to recognize what is, we first need to establish active knowledge about how our current dysfunctional relationship of unsustainment are sustained. One could assume it is truly difficult to be an avant-gardist in the time of defuturing, as Tony Fry named in this condition in his book of the same name. Fry introduced this concept as a destruction of the future by design. It means that we live in a world that is taking away futures for ourselves and non-human others. He criticizes Eurocentric, anthropocentric, and productivist structures of unsustainability by exploring the history of design that so importantly, yet often subliminally, coordinates our activities and influences our thoughts. Because our conditions of existence drastically changed, Fry stresses that we also need to drastically change our philosophy of existence and of acting. The new direction for making anything in the world is not a direction within design as is, within the already established paradigms. It is a direction beyond where design now is. It is also a direction beyond where thought now is. The alternative to the process of change so that nothing changes and covering of crisis would be informed futuring, which basically refers to finding the alternative and acquiring the agency in order to create something truly different, so an actual change. For this kind of futuring, a new avant-garde in doing and thinking is needed. Therefore, it is still central to go back into history, to look into the past, to deconstruct and surpass it. And the most significant signifier of how we do and think things and how we ascribe value is growth. So therefore, besides offering a complex image of symbiosis and establishing new and different relationships, it is important to decolonize our imaginary of growth. We can understand growth as a centuries-old matrix of thinking that historically constructs Western civilizational models of meaning-making collectively and individually from various institutional macro and micro forms of society. The logic of growth is thus not only rooted in the rational categories that shape our concepts, but also in the way we look at the world, how we describe, how we perceive it, how we represent it. And the stubbornness to fight growth by reformulating capitalist parameters, for example, by establishing concepts like social, human, local, sustainable development, can only lead to new ecological, economic, and social failures. Agendas that we probably are all familiar with, such as the New European Bauhaus, for example, and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, do seem to be signs of a significant shift toward an awareness about social and environmental health, equality, and justice. However, we need to be critical of the very idea of sustainable development, which remains part of the Western economic imaginary of growth. We can find this critique especially in the works by Serge Latouche, who claims that the idea of sustainable development is mystified, is ideologized one that does not bring about any radical turn in thinking, but stems from the logic of a compromise. Consequently, it is unavoidable to start decolonizing our imaginaries. We borrow this from Latouche, who refers on the one hand to the concept of the radical imaginary by Cornelius Castoriadis, and on the other hand to the anti-imperialist concept of decolonization, which is introduced by anthropologists such as Serge Gruzinski. If we follow Latouche's insight, radical change needs another economy, another view of science that would go beyond the concept of Promethean technoscience, another conception of life and death, a different conception of wealth and poverty, another notion of time that would no longer be linear, cumulative, continuous, other conceptions of space. Other intergenerational and gender relations, a different concept of work, placing social relations in the center instead of, for example, efficiency or value accumulation. One solid set of alternatives to the logics of growth was offered by the introduction of concepts such as post-growth and degrowth. And even though the concept of degrowth as the most optimal future direction of our global society is becoming more and more mainstream, it is clear we will not achieve any drastic changes in human behavior if we do not address its phenomenological and epistemological implications that could provide us with new models for everyday life. Neutralizing the disastrous impact of our growth-based society would mean actually using radical avant-garde methods as a unique combination of chance and plan, happening and controlled work in all aspects of thinking and creating for uncertain futures. We see the legacy of the avant-garde moments as a plethora of valuable concepts that are yet to be applied from the field of art exclusively to the area of social and environmental care, and precisely to the way we make and do things. The avant-gardist proposition appears to have been precisely what we need today for a symbiotic metamorphosis in being, as stated by Pasi Haikurinen, connected with the practice of releasement, understood as the new ethos for degrowth society. To conclude this presentation, we will highlight two intermediate investigative artistic practices that involve cutting-edge technologies and critically confront the European social and cultural values. First is Vladan Joler's recent hybrid animated infographic work, New Extractivism, that visualizes the position of the individual as a user or contemporary information technologies who is subject to systemic and systematic corporate extraction. Thus, the scientific, artistic assemblage reveals and critically discusses some of the most pressing issues of modern platform capitalism. Second is the important work by interdisciplinary collective Disnovation, well presented at this year's ICEA. Disnovation's work vividly shows the paradoxes of the contemporary consumer and hyper-informatized society, but it also tries to contribute suggestions and tools for resolving them. Such is the set of games, the Post-Growth Toolkit, which offers a mix of scientific and speculative narrative tools that offer a set of more sustainable solutions for everyday life. Post-growth prototypes function as case studies of advanced and symbiotic concepts, but that also introduce a new responsibility of man towards the biosphere. These and similar artistic practices that use new technology and scientific methods to conduct artistic research bear witness to the engagement of art in order to answer the most pressing questions of our time, not only by representing what does not work, but above all construct new relationships and ideas for the future imaginary that won't be based on the logics of growth, linear progress, and other myths of modernity. That's it. Thank you. If there's questions and comments.